I just finished rewatching Doctor Strange of Multiverse of Madness for the second time, and I gotta say, it's not as bad as many people say it out to be.
Pretty good.
But I will admit, the movie does have a flaw, or has flaws that I will be talking about right now. And those flaws really do bog down the movie for me. But for the entire grand scheme of the movie, I would say it's still a pretty worth the watch. So if that's what you want to hear, go watch Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I think it's worth the watch. But in this video, I will be listing the good and the bad of this movie and my final verdict for this movie. So let's do this. After Loki made the first steps into the multiverse, Spider-Man No Way Home showed all the crowd-pleasing potential of the concept as it brought together 3 generations of Spider-Men. We have Tobey Maguire,
Hello.
Andrew Garfield,
I am Spider-Man in my world.
and Tom Holland in one Spider-Man movie. Like, I can't believe to this day that it really happened. And Doctor Strange can't repeat that particular trick. But fans of the Marvel Universe certainly have high hopes of just who Doctor Strange might just bump into next. Like, when I heard the potential roster for this movie, I heard Tom Cruise as Iron Man, Wesley Snipes as Blade, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Tobey Maguire returning as Spider-Man, John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, and Ryan Reynolds was also rumored to be part of this movie. Like, the rumors were insane and the internet was also losing their minds about it. And then you add in the excitement of Sam Raimi directing his first superhero movie ever since the Spider-Man trilogy. And the worry for some people is that Doctor Strange 2 might not live up to the hype or to the movie that the fans have created in their minds. The truth is that it probably won't. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's absolutely a Sam Raimi movie and is definitely the MCU's first horror movie, resulting in some unique sequences that, not gonna lie, made me reminisce about the horror elements Sam Raimi is well known for. However, this is where the bad comes in. The story lets it down and could prove divisive for some fans. Oh, and this might be a good time to let you guys know, I might be diving into spoiler territory. No, I will be diving into spoiler territory. So if you haven't seen Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, are you mad? Go watch it. I promise you it's not gonna waste your time, and then you can come back to this video. Okay, are we good? I'm gonna talk about spoilers in 3, 2, 1. You ready? Alright, let's do this. Raimi certainly doesn't waste no time in pulling you into the madness. As the movie opens with the mid-chase sequence, we meet America Chavez, who's on the run from a creature with Doctor Strange, but not our Doctor Strange. He's even more of a dickhead if you ask me, but I don't know, that's just the vibes that I got with him. In the next scene, our Doctor Strange wakes up and assumes it's all a dream until Christine Palmer's wedding day is interrupted by the arrival of Gargantos, which I'm assuming this Gargantos fella is Shumagorath in the comics, but I don't know, please do correct me in the comments. Meaning, Strange has to make a quick costume change, and in the next sequence, you get one of the most Sam Raimi superhero movie tropes ever. And it's just, the nostalgic hits right in the heart. And during the battle, he meets Chavez, and so begins the madness. With the help of his new ally, and Wanda Maximoff, Strange sets off to traverse the alternate realities of the multiverse in order to confront a mysterious and dangerous new villain. And that's about all you get from us, plot-wise to be honest. As well as throwing you into the action, the overall pacing is relentless and the sequel shows its hand a lot earlier than you'd expect. There's been endless speculations from fans about the villain, which we won't spoil here, but it's revealed surprisingly quickly. What do I mean by that? Well, there's not really a mystery for Strange to unravel, and it doesn't take too long for you to realize that there's not much else going on either. Well, plot-wise. There are certainly attempts and nods to deeper themes, but the same notes are repeated throughout, and no time is given to explore them further as the movie speeds to another location or set piece. In truth, though, there's not really as much multiverse hopping as you'd expect, so the movie never feels bloated or overlong. If you're after 2 hours of spectacle, it won't disappoint, and the multiverse setting is exploited to its fullest, visually speaking. Most pleasingly though, the movie has Sam Raimi's fingerprints all over it. Because a long-running criticisms of MCU movies is that they can feel made by a committee and it doesn't really matter who's directing it. They'll end up looking the same and ticking all the familiar boxes and never really pushing the boundaries. For better and for some fans, potentially for the worse. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness doesn't always feel safe. For all the frustrations with the thin storyline, the sequel leans hard into the horror with an early eyeball gouging setting the tone, followed by numerous impalings, charred corpse, and effective jump scares. It probably pushes the family-friendly vibe as far as the MCU will ever do. And at least it feels different to what comes before. The set pieces themselves sometimes stray into the CGI overload we've seen elsewhere, but there are unique thrills to be found here too. A late-stage magical music battle, about the only way we can describe it, is inventive and witty. While Sam Raimi goes full-on horror with his take on the zombie Strange that's been teased in the trailers, so that's not really a spoiler. Even though the character development is as one note as the plot, Benedict Cumberbatch and Elizabeth Olsen are just too good in their roles to let it sink them. They do their best to make the movie connect on an emotional level, but really it's more down to your history with them rather than any revelations here in the movie. Because we've seen these two characters in the Marvel Universe so much to the point that we've grown an attachment to them and we sympathize with them because they've gone through so many devastating situations. Wanda having no choice to kill Vision so that they can at least win the war, but then Thanos does the Uno reverse card just to resurrect him again and then kill him again. Strange only finding one alternate reality where they won and beat Thanos and that caused the death of Iron Man. So I can understand both sides of the coin, one loving it.
Who made it? Why? Because I love it!
And one hating it. I can understand why many people would love this movie because they just want to see Wanda and Doctor Strange and whoever Doctor Strange will run into in the multiverse. And the other side of the coin, I can understand why many people didn't love this movie. And if you don't like this movie, that's fine. I totally understand. And one of the problems that I have with this movie is the inconsistent tone of it. Like 40% of this movie felt like a Marvel movie, but 60% of this movie felt like a Sam Raimi movie. Like, I kinda wish this movie stayed in the Sam Raimi tone, because when the movie hits the tone of Sam Raimi's moments, the movie was just really phenomenal and good, and I kinda wish there was more of that. But then you get those really good Sam Raimi moments, and then few moments later you turn back to the Marvel typical formula. And that's what I mean by the inconsistent tone of it. You get 40% Marvel, but then you get 60% Sam Raimi, and I wish this movie went on full on Sam Raimi. And Sam Raimi is one of those directors where if he has a vision, you gotta stay in that vision, because it just feels weird where you have a little sprinkle of moments of Sam Raimi-ness in the movie, and then next scene you get your typical Marvel formula moments. Like, the inconsistent shift of tones were kind of bothering me, but not to the point where I would say that this movie is like the worst MCU movie. I don't think it's the worst MCU movie, because I did have fun with this movie and I enjoyed the horror elements, the Sam Raimi elements of it, and all the Sam Raimi references that lead back to Evil Dead, Drag Me to Hell, like those kinds of corny, scary horror elements of the movie. That is what I love about this movie. It has those kinds of moments, but then again you shift back to the Marvel tone, the tone just it's kind of a letdown for me. I'm gonna be honest, as much as I love this movie, it did have some disappointing factors into it. But then again, it's not to the point where I would say that this movie is like a dog shit or anything. It's still worth the watch, so go give this movie a chance. If you love it, great. If you hate it, then you don't have to watch it again. For me, I love it. Do I think this movie is like the best Marvel movie ever? No, but I would say that this movie is the most unique MCU movie by far, in my opinion. And the marketing for this movie was the first MCU horror movie. And I have to be honest, this movie delivered on the horror elements. I mean, it's not as scary as like some other well-known horror movies, But into Marvel standards, this movie has some real horror, bloody, violating elements and sequences that, I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect Marvel to do, but they did. So I'm gonna give Marvel credit because, to be fair, they did let Sam Raimi do most of his thing. Well, 60% of the time, but you still get those 60%, and when those 60% hit, the movie just gets so good. And as with any MCU movie, there are surprises to be had for fans, but the movie is smart not to lean too hard into the potential of the multiverse. It's a good thing too, as the main sequence that does just that is jarring and exists purely for fan service, halting the movie in its track when you wish the time was spent in developing the underdeveloped plot of this movie. Much like the first Doctor Strange movie, the overall feeling you are left with is one of frustrations. It does feel unique in terms of the MCU, and there are strong sequences throughout, right up to the understated finale. Yet there are obvious flaws elsewhere, with the rotated characterization and an underdeveloped plot that needed more cooking in the kitchen. But Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is far from a horror show, but you can't help that feel somewhere in the multiverse there's a better version of this movie that exists, and if there is, I kinda wanna see that version of the movie. But at the end of the day, I still love this movie. I think it's still a good watch, so please do give this movie a shot. You'll either love it or you hate it. Oh, and before I end the video, I want to talk about the Illuminati. So if you guys don't know the Illuminati, let me try to explain it to you guys. So the original Marvel Universe group known as the Illuminati were brought together by Tony Stark, or Iron Man, in the wakes of the Kree Skrull War storyline. First as a sort of a idea composed to try to form what Tony Stark calls a kind of a superhero government, based around his realization that heroes of Earth could have done much more to prevent the Kree Skrull War's impact had they become more communicative about their collective encounters with the Kree and the Skrull empires. This initial meeting shown retroactively in the 2007's new Avengers comics, which includes Tony Stark as Iron Man, Charles Xavier representing as the leader of the X-Men, Reed Richards or Mr. Fantastic representing as the leader of the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange as the Sorcerer Supreme, Namor the Submariner as the King of Atlantis, Black Bolt as the King of the Inhumans, and Black Panther as the King of Wakanda. Though the group refuses Tony Stark's idea of a superhero bureaucracy, which he later somewhat enacts in the story of Civil War as the Superhuman Registration Act. All those present but Black Panther agree that they should all remain in contact to exchange information and coordinate their actions. Black Panther refuses, stating his belief that such a group is likely to quickly overstep its intended bounds in potentially harmful ways. Unfortunately, T'Challa is proven somewhat right as the years go by through the course of the new Avengers Illuminati limited series. The group first begins meeting to exchange information as stated, but they quickly begin undertaking their own missions and operations in secret, with most of the group's biggest manipulation eventually backfiring them. Though a full list of the Illuminati's attempted and backfired manipulations of the Marvel Universe would take an exhaustive amount of time, their greatest hits spell out of the kind of impact they've had on the events of the Marvel continuity. So to put it simply, they fucked up big time. Well, actually they fucked up a lot during their time. Like for instance, they had a failed mission among the Skrulls, which leads to the Skrulls developing the power to shapeshift undetected, resulting in the story of the Secret Invasion comics. And then another one is that Hulk is exiled to the planet Sakaar in the story of the Planet Hulk comics, only to return to Earth and wreak havoc in a request for vengeance against the Illuminati in the World War Hulk comics. And then another instance, the Illuminati attempts to re-empower the secret hero, the Sentry, while purging him of his villainous dark side, the Void, instead of opening him up to the manipulation by Norman Osborn and the destruction of Asgard. More on that momentarily. And then there's another instance where Reed Richards assembles the Infinity Stones in attempts to destroy them, but instead gains the ire of the Watchers. In other words, he basically pissed off the Watchers, forcing the members of the Illuminati to each safeguard one of the stones. Tony Stark gets the Reality Stone, Charles Xavier gets the Mind Stone, Namor gets the Time Stone, Black Bolt gets the Space Stone, Doctor Strange gets the Soul Stone, and Reed himself takes the Power Stone. And the Illuminati also intervenes in the events of both the original Marvel superheroes Secret Wars and its sequel, Secret Wars Part 2, only to try to defeat the all-powerful Beyonder without the other superheroes even knowing. Though they failed the first time, their second attempt is somewhat successful. Now that I've got all of that out of the way, What do I think of the Illuminati in the movie? Well, to be fair though, in the comics, the Illuminati have always been cocky and arrogant. Because to be fair, in the comics, they've always been that kind of arrogant and cocky. It's just more how dumb they seem when they're just showing it off. Like calling Mr. Fantastic or Reed Richards the smartest man in the world and then having him flat out explain Bolt's power so Wanda could counter them just felt so dumb to me. Like, I kid you not, he literally told Wanda, Black Bolt can destroy you with one whisper from his mouth. Why'd you tell her that, my dudes? Why? And another problem that I have with this version of the Illuminati is that they never considered their Wanda a threat. Given their own statements, they considered Strange a threat because he had to use the Darkhold and he did dreamwalking to destroy an entire reality with an incursion. And in this version of the Illuminati, they have Mordor, and Mordor is their Sorcerer Supreme because their Doctor Strange kinda went cuckoo. And he is aware of the Scarlet Witch, which begs the question for me, why haven't the Illuminati done anything about it? If you know Wanda is the Scarlet Witch and you know that she has the abilities to use the Darkhold and she can dreamwalk, like two of those things are like massive red flags to me. It's concerning that the Illuminati didn't even consider about thinking the possibilities of another Wanda doing the same exact thing. Like, this version of the Illuminati just makes a lot of like bad decisions to the point where I don't even know how this version of the Illuminati would like cooperate or function as a group if there's like real threat like in front of them. Like in the movie, they literally showed how they function as a group. They literally just got spanked for like a few minutes. Black Bolt getting his head popped, Reed turning into blue spaghetti, Captain Carter getting
Slice 'em up, dice 'em up.
and Captain Marvel getting... Here's the thing, I am not buying that one of the strongest Marvel characters, Captain Marvel, literally dies over a bunch of bricks. Like, I am not buying that. If you can handle an alien ship, I'm pretty sure you can handle a bunch of bricks. But that's just me nitpicking, and if you guys still think the Illuminati were handled well or not, then I understand both sides of where you guys are coming from. It's just that for me, I've always seen the Illuminati as like this arrogant, cocky, secret organizations of different superheroes from different factions and decided to fix the superhuman world and the world around it. But as I stated a while ago about all the things they've done together in their time, they weren't really the best organization out there. And they literally have one of the most hated characters in Marvel Comics. Well, I think that's just me. But holy shit, I hate Namor. Namor is one of the biggest dicks in Marvel Comics. Dude switches between hero and villain even more than Scarlet Witch. But unlike her, even when he's a hero, he's still an asshole. But he respects Thor and Steve Rogers and has a semi-respectful, hateful attitude towards Reed Richards and Doctor Doom. And he's horny for the Invisible Woman, but he's basically rude to everyone. If that doesn't scream arrogant and cocky, then I don't know what will. But then again, that's my opinion of the Illuminati. You guys can have different opinions and you guys are welcome to prove me wrong because I like to be proven wrong. So, if you guys have, different thoughts about it, go put in the comments down below. So, to answer the title of this video, is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness that bad? Well, as the MCU grows bigger, storylines are bound to get more complicated. New characters and artifacts will be introduced, and it's the duty of the story writers and the film directors to be able to break down the values of these new features in order for the audience to truly enjoy its existence. Throughout the movie, new angles were taken up with little to no explanation, and the viewers were expected to simply just go with it. For instance, the Sands of Nisanti, which were used to drain Doctor Strange's powers, were added right in the middle of the film without any prior explanation. If the sands were powerful, why weren't they used in the first film to stop Caecilius? And similarly, Mount Wundagore, considering the kind of power it possessed, was not even mentioned once in the entirety of the MCU before Doctor Strange 2. And who were the four creatures protecting it? Considering the ease with which they were killed, they did deserve as much screen time as they did. And how exactly did they add to the narrative of the movie? And there goes another problem that I had with this movie, the plot convenience. When making a film, the illusion of coincidence plays a big part. However, in Doctor Strange 2, Marvel takes this to a whole new level. For instance, the movie made it really clear that America Chavez could not use her multiverse transportation power on command. However, during the climax of the film, all she needed was for Doctor Strange to say something like, like, believe in yourself, you can do it. Then bam, portals were opening here and there. Travis even became powerful enough to keep the portal open for even 3 minutes, during which Wanda from Earth 838 was able to convince the Scarlet Witch that her kids will be safe in that universe. Like, really? That's the climax that you guys came up with? I was expecting something different than that one. And there's this one thing that I've noticed watching this movie for the second time. It kind of reminds me of an MCU movie that I've seen recently. Now hear me out. Using an artifact that makes you get trapped within an illusion that further makes you open doors to an alternate dimension. Do you know where I'm going with this? Because yes, that is the story of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, in which Shang-Chi's father, Wenwu, who boasts of wearing the 10 rings, starts listening to his dead wife's cries, forcing him to break down the Dark Gate in the mythical land of Talo. Now, replace the 10 rings with the Dark Hold. Replace Wenwu with Wanda. Replace Talo with Earth 838. And make a few alterations to the rest of the details, and that's it. That's Doctor Strange 2 for you. That's literally what Doctor Strange does for you. That's literally the same thing. So what do I think of Doctor Strange 2? Well, it's good and it's bad at the same time. You have the good, but you also have the bad. And it's like I said, I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed after watching this in the theaters. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to ignore the flaws that I've just mentioned a while ago. So yeah, you get the good with the bad. But is it the worst MCU movie of all time? Well, in my opinion, it's not that bad, but it's certainly not that good either. So you take the good with the bad. And I've seen a lot of MCU movies, and to be fair, this is not the worst I've seen of all time. So yeah, I think the ones that are preaching about that one, hold your horses, people. I don't think this is like the worst MCU movie of all time, but I do understand why many people didn't like it. I feel like the reason why many people really hate this movie is because of the expectations. The expectations that, oh wow, we're gonna get a lot of cameos that just seemed so unrealistic that I never really thought about it. And I believe after No Way Home, people were expecting the same thing for Multiverse of Madness, and they didn't get that, so I feel bad for them. But to be honest, even if those cameos have happened, I feel like the problems that I just stated would still be in the movie. So I don't think a bunch of cameos would have fixed the problems that this movie really had in the first place. Like, the movie itself already has problems. What makes you think those cameos were going to save it? And if those cameos have happened, like all of them really were in the movie, I feel like the problems of this movie would just add up, and it's just not gonna look good. It's just not. So my final verdict for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is a 7.5 out of 10. I enjoyed this movie, but at the same time, I just could not ignore the flaws that this movie has. But I still think it's worth the watch, you know, at least once. Go give this movie at least one shot. If you don't like it, then don't watch it again. If you do, then that's great. So yeah, I'll leave it to that. I hope you guys could like and subscribe, and if you think my criticism of this movie was fair or not, if you like it, if you don't like it, then comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this movie. Is it good or bad or mid? So yeah, enjoy your day guys, and yeah, see you in the next video. Bye guys.